Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Getting back to work on the Sig P365 in this video. Last video I did a pretty thorough cleaning and just put some general penetrating lubricant and everything on these micro lube, this super quick clean gun. I've let them sit for a couple days. So next I'm going to do is start working on some of the parts that just have like friction surfaces, things like that. Do a little polish work on them. I'm not putting any aftermarket parts in this, being that this is going to be a EDC firearm. I don't want to put anything other than OEM type components in it. So what I'm looking to do is, like on the trigger bar, do a little polishing. I'm going to look at where that functions up against the chassis, maybe do a little polishing on here where there's any touch points. Same thing with like the sear, where that contacts and disengages the sear. Little things like that, nothing too crazy. Also maybe the slide area where the slide rail, the rails, do a little polish work on those. So I'm going to go ahead, get a Dremel, get some polishing compound, and start messing around a little bit, and I will fill you in as I start moving along. All right, so first bit of polishing is done, and this is what I'm using. I'm using some flits, and then I just have these, polish wheels that I got off Amazon, years ago for doing this stuff, and just using variable speed Dremel. But what I hit so far is right here, here, and here, and then the underside of right here, because those are the areas that the trigger bar rubs up against as it's sliding back and forth. And I will say it is noticeably, it's noticeable, because if you feel the texture, like in these places you haven't done it, it's a little bit more rough. This is nice and smooth now. I haven't even done anything to the trigger bar yet, but it definitely feels a little less draggy just rubbing on there. And I'm not worried about any of the finish coming off, because you can see, it's, removed a little bit of the finish that was on there. There's going to be oil or whatnot, but I mean, this feels so much more smooth now versus, what was, had the finish on it before. That was a little bit more rough. This definitely has a little bit of a nicer polish to it. So I'm going to go over trigger bar and just kind of wipe this down with the flits as well, clean it up, and this, same thing, the contact points there. Because like I said, you can see where it rubbed previously, and that's what kind of made me do this. That, that right there tells me that there's abrasion spots. So I'm gonna do some polish work where this is gonna have touch points on this, and then I will come back. All right, next up is the trigger bar, and hopefully you can hear me. My furnace just kicked on. I mean, there's like no drag now. You barely touch it and it moves. So I mean, this is definitely a difference. I did go over the entire trigger bar. Especially concentrating on this area here where it rubs. I went inside, where all this hits the sear and everything, and clean that up, as well as make sure you do a lot here, because this is where it's going to be touching the actual trigger itself, which that'll be next on the list. But I mean, you can feel how much smoother this is now after going over it with the flits and the polish wheel. But I mean, yeah, it just glides so nice now at this point in time. Big difference. It is definitely noticeable. A lot less resistance to go back and forth. So that's as far as I'm going to go with that. You'll notice it did take a little bit of the finish off of it, but I'm not too worried about it. And again, I did do the outer edge because this may slightly impact the inside of the grip module and whatnot, so I might as well have that as smooth as possible. All right, so now onto the trigger itself, and depending on what tools you have, you're kind of limited on what you can do. I did go over with the flits and the polishing wheel on all the rounded edges here, as well as concentrating on the inside here where the trigger bar clips into place. And I did polish up the outside here a little bit. I think I might go over it a little bit more, just because again, this might rub on the inside of the grip module. As far as like in this area here, I didn't have my tool, I really can't fit in there. So what I did is I put some flits in there, and then I kind of put it in place in the bottom of the actual chassis, and I just kind of back and forth, just trying to, clean it up a little bit. It might have helped a little bit, not sure how much, and then I just cleaned it all out using some patches. Got the leftover residue out of there and whatnot. So I'm gonna do a little more on this, and then I'll get on to the next part. All right, and I am much happier with that. I also did go ahead and polished the center hump underneath where the trigger goes up against the chassis, so that's all cleaned up there. And now, I mean, there's like no drag whatsoever. We're really happy with this. It slides really nice and easy. So yeah, pretty good work there. So I'm happy with that. So that covers the trigger pieces. I also did just wipe some on the trigger pin and just clean it off with the microfiber, just to try and see if there were, if there was any imperfections or anything or any dirt. The flitz will take it off. So next thing I want to attack is the sear, especially where it engages with things. Just make sure that there's no little rough spots or anything like that. I'll just smooth out the transition when it's releasing and firing. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that part and take a look at it and do a little polish work. Alright, so here is the sear, and it actually pretty much shows you where you have your touch points. You can see rub marks on it. This is right here what catches the firing pin and holds it in place, and you can see the wear marks there. And then down here is where the actual trigger bar grabs it and releases it. I'm pretty much just going to go over this whole thing and just polish the whole thing up as much as possible. I think, not removing any material, you don't want to screw any of that up, but going over and just polishing it should not hurt anything. It should make it, for just a much more crisp and easier firearm. So I'm going to go ahead and go over this with the flitz and the polish wheel, and I'll be back once this is done. Alright, so here you can see I've gone over the sear, much shinier than it used to be, and it is definitely very smooth to the touch. I went over the top, the ramp area, all that, which is going to be what connects to the firing or holds the firing pin. So this is where you want it to be nice and smooth, but do not screw up the transition there. You want to make sure that's not going to be ruined, because that's what holds the firing pin, that ledge there. So make sure you don't take anything off the ledge. That's why we're just using some polish compound and a polishing wheel. And I did go down the sides, make sure everything there is going to be snag free, and then also the back of this bottom plate here, kind of where my thumbnail ends, the shorter spot here that I'm kind of touching on, that corner, that is where the trigger bar actually catches to release this. So just smooth that out real nice as well. So that's all nice and smooth. Also took a little polish to the pin that holds that in place just to clean it up a little bit. So that pretty much just leaves two parts left. Part of the firing pin safety mechanism, these two items right here. So I'm going to polish those up, and then I'm going to polish just the groove that this piece sits in, which is right here on the right side of the block. So that slides up and down in there. I'm going to clean that up, and then again, I'll polish these two pieces, and that should be it as far as the parts that I'm going to polish. I'm not really worried about the takedown lever or the takedown safety. Those really don't come into play in the day-to-day firing. And I'm not worried about the slide stop. That's really not going to hurt anything either if it's, there's really not much you need to do on it. It's, not a terrible finish. And again, I'm most worried about having the crispest, cleanest trigger possible, not so much the other ancillary items that aren't used in the firing operation. All right, so I went ahead and polished this up all the way around every side and bit, so it is all set. It's good to go there. Same thing with this, polish this completely, and then also the channel it sits in, so it'll just slide into place like so, and it's now smooth as can be, no resistance whatsoever. So just those little things, man, they will add up over time, and you can see how shiny that is now. So that's as far as I'm going to go with the polishing of the fire control unit and its components. So I think I'm going to end this video here. I'm not going to do anything with the rails because I put the slide on these rails. I mean, it slides smooth as butter. I don't notice anything that is any kind of little hook or hiccup or anything like that. I mean, it goes back and forth without any issue. So I really don't see a need to do anything with the rails. They'll have a little coat of grease on them, and I mean, yeah, it's without any grease, just like this. It slides back and forth in the slide without any issues. So I'm going to end this video here, and then next video I will pick up with putting the fire control unit back together, because that's going to be a little bit of a process, and I'll walk you through how to fit everything where it goes and get everything reassembled, and that will be it as far as the lower end of the gun goes. So if you like what you see, you want to follow along, please hit like, please hit subscribe, please hit the notification bell. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. I do review them and I will reply. I do have an automotive related channel as well. There will be a link to it in the description of the video. If you're into cars, trucks, anything like that and want to check it out, go right ahead. And that being said, thank you very much for watching and have a great day.